Okay, I think we should probably get started then. Welcome everybody to our latest session of the EVN Masterclasses. I'm Dave Cullen. I'm a policy fellow at BASIC, and I'm also the program manager for the Emerging Voices Network. These masterclasses are a great opportunity to tap into the network of experts that BASIC is very lucky to have and to share their expertise with the network. As you know, the masterclasses are intended to be an accessible digital resource, primarily for EVN members, but also the general public. We now have a landing page on the BASIC website where you can find a list of the past masterclasses. Today, it's my great pleasure that we are joined by Dr. Kazuko Hikawa. Dr. Hikawa works at Nagasaki University in Japan, where she serves as the Vice Director of and Professor at the Researcher Center for Nuclear Weapons Abolition. She is also a professor at the Research Center for Global Risk and is also Deputy Director of the Center. She's an adjunct fellow of the Japan Institute of International Affairs and co-founder of New World Prosperity. Prior to her academic career, Dr. Hikawa served as a diplomat with the Japanese Foreign Service for 24 years. Throughout her career, she's been actively involved in the NPT Review Process since 2002. She has held various positions, including assistant to the chair of the 2007 NPT Preparatory Committee and assistant to the chair of Main Committee 2 at the 2010 NPT Review Conference. In 2013, Dr. Hikawa was appointed as a special assistant for arms control, disarmament, and non-proliferation issues with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Japan. She has also served as the Deputy Director of the Non-Proliferation Science Nuclear Energy Division, where she focused on IAEA safeguards issues. From 2021 to 2023, Dr. Hikawa was a member of the UN Group of Governmental Experts on Nuclear Disarmament Verification. So I'm really glad to have her joining us, and I really look forward to her talk.
May I? Okay.
Please go
Thank
ahead.
you. Thank you very much for your kind introduction. Thank you, David, Declan, and the other BASIC colleagues for giving me this opportunity. I'm very much, honored and happy to speak about the NPT, my most favorite item in disarmament field today. And let me share you my slides here, and wait a minute. Because we postponed, this class one time, I had enough time to change my slides, and I tried to accommodate my presentation to the audience, because first I thought that I should keep a kind of briefings on very basic points of the NPT, but I've heard that many of you are already familiar with the NPT, so I try to a little bit go into deep side of the NPT. So yeah, introduction to the NPT and the challenges it faces, but maybe I hope that it will give you a kind of new insight about the NPT. So to begin, as you may know, yeah, I'm sure you know that this year marks the 80th anniversary of the atomic bombing. And very last year, Nihon Hirankyo was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. The reason for the award is, I quoted here from the announcement by the Norwegian Nobel Peace Prize Institute. So I will read it out. The Norwegian Nobel Committee has decided to award the Nobel Peace Prize for 2024 to the Japanese organization Nihon Hirankyo. This grassroots movement of atomic bomb survivors from Hiroshima and Nagasaki, also known as Hibakusha, is receiving the Peace Prize for its efforts to achieve a world free of nuclear weapons and for demonstrating through witness testimony that nuclear weapons must never be used again. So that was, because I'm based in Nagasaki, I also witnessed firsthand how people were excited by this announcement, but at the same time, how people were disappointed by the Japanese government's kind of position. And I've been thinking, and the problem is, yes, the it's true that the nuclear taboo has been protected, and nuclear weapons have not been used in the past 80 years. But why, 80 years after the war, why we are still failing to achieve the abolition of nuclear weapons? Yes, why? And I'm always asking this question to my students as well at the Nagasaki University, what they think. And to put this issue in perspective, let me begin by quoting my mentor, Professor Mitsuru Kurosawa. He's Japan's most prominent scholar of international disarmament law. He once wrote in his book, in Japanese, that's why this is translation by me. So he once wrote, when considering disarmament issues, it is essential to have sufficient knowledge of the negotiations to date and a correct understanding of the content and the significance of the disarmament treaties already in place. Only on these premises will the problems of the current disarmament negotiations or the direction that should be taken in the future with regard to disarmament become clear. Yes, for me, this, his words are very important because I think this is very true. Without knowing what has been done already, we cannot address where the problems is and what we should do, or what we have to do. So this quote, with this quote in mind today, I would like to address the NPT, which is regarded as a cornerstone of the international non-proliferation regime. So this is the outline. I will provide a kind of overview of the origins and brief history of the NPT. Then I would like to address the key components of the NPT review process and the challenges facing the NPT. So first, the origins of the NPT can, in a sense, be traced back to 1946. This is because it was precisely in 1946 that the international community began discussing how to deal with the problem of nuclear weapons. So NPT was not created out of the blue, but against the background of discussions and failed negotiations on nuclear weapons, mainly in the UN since 1945. So I would like to explain a little bit about the background. So, but very briefly, quickly, the Atomic Energy Commission was established in 1946. Actually, the establishment of this commission was decided by the UN General Assembly in January in the same year, 1946. To mandate this Atomic Energy Commission to deal with the control of nuclear energy, because at that time only the United States had the nuclear weapons. No other countries had nuclear weapons. So the Atomic Energy Commission is established, and there US proposed control and first control of nuclear weapons, and if it is proven effective, then they would eliminate their nuclear weapons. So control first. On the other hand, Soviet Union at that time proposed treaty banning nuclear weapons, like TPNW now. However, of course, United States did not agree, and this difference in their views not overcome. So the Atomic Energy Commission achieved nothing, and they dissolved in 1952. But in parallel, there are also a commission on conventional armaments, which we discussed the conventional weapons. There was no progress. So the UN decided to establish new commission called Disarmament Commission. And this Disarmament Commission was established by UN's General Assembly resolution again. The mandate is to propose a draft treaty for the regulation, limitation, balance reduction of all armed forces and all armaments for the elimination of all major weapons adaptable to mass destruction and for effective international control of atomic energy to ensure the prohibition of atomic weapons and the use of atomic energy for peaceful purposes only. So the idea to prohibit nuclear weapons was already there in 1940 and 1950. However, it also failed. And then let me go back. This disarmament commission, yes, it remains in existence. However, there is no tangible outcome. Yes, until 1978. So the forum for negotiation on disarmament treaties moved to another outside the UN. So the countries had not gave up. Negotiations in committees co-chaired by US and Soviet Union. So the Soviet Union and US and Soviet Union came to the agreement to establish a 10 Nations Committee on Disarmament in 1960. And then, but no progress. And then they expand this committee to 18 countries in 2062. And this 18 nations disarmament has some success. For example, they could achieve, they could adopt a partial nuclear test ban treaty, which was adopted in 1963, and the NPT, 1968. So that was initiative by the US and the Soviet Union at that time. With this background, let me, go to the NPT overview of the origins of NPT. Anyway, in 1950s, the reason why US and Soviet Union are so active in negotiation on disarmament is that in 1950s, US and Soviet Union increases their nuclear arsenals. Yes, and the deployment of nuclear weapons in Europe has also started. At the same time, development of peaceful nuclear energy has also expanded. So there is a fear that nuclear technology will be proliferated. And at that time, 26 countries were considered potential nuclear weapon states because there is no treaty or no control, international control over nuclear weapons or nuclear technology. So people believe that 26 countries were considered potential nuclear weapon states, and 12, 8, and 6 of which were considered closest to acquiring nuclear weapons, like Japan or Western Germany or Italy, Belgium. So with this background, several proposals were made by countries concerned as a step towards total disarmament. However, these proposals were all not successful, and only Ireland's proposal made in 1958 was supported by UN General Assembly with a majority. And the Ireland's proposal's idea was not just ban the nuclear weapons or prohibit something, but to stop to limit the number of the countries which have nuclear weapons. So Ireland said that it is in the interest of all of us that the nuclear weapon states be limited. So stop. And that this idea gained support. This is 1958, September, Ireland proposes non-proliferation of nuclear weapons. Non-proliferation. So stop the number of the nuclear weapons, nuclear armed states here. So in the meantime, 2 years later, France conducts nuclear test, and 1961, UN General Assembly adopts formally Irish resolution by consensus. The point of Irish resolution is that the nuclear armed states will not transfer their nuclear weapons to non-nuclear weapon states or assist them to acquire nuclear weapons. So then China conducted nuclear test in 1964, and 1965, US submits draft nuclear non-proliferation treaty, so draft NPT. And September, Soviet Union submitted another draft NPT. And negotiations, I will not go into details of negotiations. By the way, there is a really excellent academic work, maybe you know, but excellent academic work made by Egyptian diplomat, ambassador Mohammed Shaka, about the negotiation history of the NPT. So I will not go into detail. And yeah, after 3 years, in 1968, General Assembly adopts a resolution to recommend the NPT. And in the next month, NPT opened for the signature. So yes, and enter into force on March 1970, and the number of the state parties to the NPT is now 191, and one NPT is one of the most universalized treaties in the world. Nuclear armed states outside the NPT are India, Pakistan, Israel, 3 countries, and DPRK announced its withdrawal from the NPT and developed nuclear weapons. So there are now 9 states which have nuclear weapons. I call this the NPT always a universalized treaty, and to make it universal, it took 10 years, for the negotiations. And the US and the Soviet Union at that time also tried to involve as many as countries possible. And for that, they also engaged in negotiations, especially negotiations on Article 3, the safeguards, because it will affect the non-nuclear weapon states which have nuclear capability in nuclear field. Okay. So as you may know, the NPT consists of 3 pillars. The 3 most important components. One is nuclear non-proliferation. Of course, this is the purpose of the treaty. However, to involve the non-nuclear weapon states or the countries commit with the non-proliferation obligations, here the Article 6, nuclear disarmament, and the peaceful use of nuclear energy, the inalienable right of states. These 3 pillars are called grand bargain. Without these 3 combination, the NPT could not be achieved or established. So these 3 pillars are very important for the NPT. Then the problem of Article 6. Some people believe that Article 6, the disarmament obligation of the NPT, is only for nuclear weapon states, but it's not. NPT Article 6 is for each of the parties to the treaty, regardless whether it is nuclear weapon states or non-nuclear weapon states. So for example, Japan as a non-nuclear weapon state, it has also the obligation under the NPT Article 6 to undertake to pursue negotiations in good faith and effective measures relating to cessation of the nuclear arms race at an early date and to nuclear disarmament, and on a treaty on general and complete disarmament under strict and effective international control. So all states parties to the NPT have the same obligation. I think it is very important point. Then let us move to NPT process quickly. Because again, some people are confused the purpose of the NPT review conference. It is stipulated in NPT Article 8. It says, I just gave emphasis here, in order to review the operation of this treaty, so to review the operation of this treaty with a view to assuring that the purpose of the preamble and the provisions of the treaty are being realized. So the purpose of the review conference is to review the operation of this treaty. Like Japanese media, every time after the review conference or preparatory committee, they only discuss whether there is an outcome document, final document, or agreed document. And if there is no agreed document, they write like, the conference is a failure or there is no outcome. But Article 8 does not say anything about the outcome document. So, oh, sorry, I skipped this. Like, especially because I joined I started my career with nuclear disarmament 2002. So for me, the 2005 review conference was a kind of starting point. And yeah, in 2005, there was no agreed substantive document. And of course, media is just, say that, oh, this is NPT will be end and this is a scandalous and so on. It's not, because in the past, there is no agreed substantive document every 2 conferences. Yes. So the first review conference in 1975, yeah, there was a final declaration, but the second review conference, no agreed substantive document. Third, yes, adopted final declaration. Fourth, no agreed substantive document. And 1995, there was no kind of comprehensive substantive document. They just adopted, not just, sorry, they adopted 3 decisions and a resolution, Middle East resolution. And they decided, yes, one of these 3 decisions is the indefinite extension of the treaty. And 2000 was a kind of final document with very comprehensive contents. But after that, yeah, I don't think that the NPT still exists. And I wrote an article, but it's only in Japanese, what happened after each review conference. For example, if after 2000, for example, after 2000, when the conference successfully adopted a final comprehensive document, what happened then? For example, 2002, North Korea declared withdrawal from the NPT. Iranian nuclear clandestine activity was revealed 2003. I listed everything what happened. And then there it's clear that it's nothing to do with the final document and the development after the conference. It's just I wanted to make that point. And then let me go back. So the review conference, review process is still, it has a group politics based on the Cold War era. So we still have Western group, Eastern group, and non-aligned countries. And last year, when the second preparatory committee for 2026 review conference successfully adopted document with chairman summary working paper, people somehow believe that it's a great success or it's an improvement. But I said, no, look at the grouping. The chair is from Eastern group. Of course, the chairman's summary produced by the chair from Western group and the chairman's summary produced by a chair from Eastern group, it's different. It's different, and if we compare, it is very clear. I do not say how different, but you can assume. Anyway, so I do not so much importance on the documents to be adapted at the conference. I just wanted to make a point. So, oh, sorry, and I will skip it. So then the last part, challenges facing the NPT. Past implementation of Article 6, disarmament obligation. And the credibility and the TPNW. Let me explain one by one. So these are, I think, not, of course, these are not on all the challenges facing the NPT, but these are three major challenges, I believe, to me. So the first is that Article 6 disarmament obligation, because it is not being fulfilled, and because the disarmament obligation is not being fulfilled, undermines the credibility of the NPT, and it also affects non-proliferation obligations, as I explained about the grand bargain. These, if the people are not satisfied with the disarmament, they will not promote the non-proliferation obligation, for example. So it undermines credibility of the NPT. And then finally, the TPNW. I'm not sure what do you think? And I know that there are different views, even among experts, and even among experts with the same level of knowledge, but there are different views. But for me, it is obvious that the TPNW was formed out of frustration with the lack of progress on nuclear disarmament under the NPT. I understand the frustration, but unfortunately, the TPNW distracts people from substantive nuclear disarmament efforts. Why? Because the TPNW leaves out the most important parties to nuclear disarmament, namely nuclear weapon states and nuclear armed states. How to get these countries, the countries that have nuclear weapons, to engage in disarmament is, in my view, the most important, most difficult part. And the NPT has already provided a legal obligation for that. So the real question for us should be how to fulfill this obligation. So if we cannot do it with the NPT, we cannot do it also because there is already the legal obligation is stipulated there. Why do we need to have another legal instrument for nuclear disarmament? So if nuclear weapons could be eliminated by prohibition, they would have been eliminated in 1946 or 1950s because people have already tried. US and Soviet Union at that time already tried, and they couldn't. Why? Because it's, I think, very natural for human beings. When it comes to security, the pressure will not work. The outside pressure from outside or external motivation will not work when it comes to someone's security. So in this sense, we really have to engage with nuclear armed states if we want to really achieve the total elimination of nuclear weapons. So I think I will stop here. I spoke already 35 minutes.
Thank you so much, Kazuko. That was fascinating. We will now have some questions and answers. If anybody would like to ask a question, please use the raise your hand function in Zoom, and that will order you into a list, and I can see the priority to ask people. I can see Franco, you have a question, so please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Kazuko. That's very interesting. I have two questions. The first one is I wanted to hear your thoughts about. I've heard the Japanese government justifying its decision not to join TPNW on the basis that nuclear weapon states are not part of the treaty. And I was wondering, given that, nuclear weapon states like India, Pakistan, Israel, and North Korea are also not part of the NPT, if it sort of delegitimizes the argument of Japan not to join the TPNW on that basis. And therefore, should Japan then, abandon its commitment to the NPT because these four nuclear weapon states are not part of it? I was wondering if you have any comments on that. And the second question I had is, I've heard the argument that part of the reason why we need a second treaty like the TPNW is that the NPT is ambiguous in the sense that an obligation to disarm is only in good faith, and therefore it doesn't really obligate countries to pursue such negotiations. And I was wondering if we accept the claim that we don't need another treaty, is it possible to amend the NPT so that in good faith becomes phrased as more concretely with specific goals of when and how to achieve such disarmament? Thank you.
Thank you. Shall I answer to the question now, or shall we
Yes, I
collect
think
some?
let's have them one at a time. We're a small enough group that I think that makes sense. Nikki, please go.
Okay. Thank you very much for your question. That's a good point. About the observership first. That's really unfortunate because I understand both positions because I know the people in Nagasaki and Hibakusha, and they are so disappointed when the Japanese government announced that they will not participate as an observer. The people are so disappointed and look so sad. On the other hand, I understand Japanese government position as well. The problem is that it's not understood. The Japanese government's announcement is always so bureaucratic, and people don't understand what they are saying. The problem, for example, if they say they do not support TPNW, there's two things. First, Japanese government does not support TPNW because it's not negotiated with nuclear weapon states or armed states. Yes, from the negotiations. So Japanese government will not accept such kind of approach. First, it's not because they are now in the treaty, but they are not involved, and they opposed for such a negotiation. And that kind of approach will not work. That is Japanese government position, and that's why the UN First Committee resolutions. Japan has been submitting disarmament resolution since 1993, and the core intention is to involve also nuclear armed states in the negotiation on the resolution, so that we will think together and we will seek the kind of common ground and find steps. So that's why always, NAC resolution, New Agenda Coalition resolution, they are very, like TPNW, very much ambitious, very ambitious. And they will not, seek the support from nuclear weapon states, but they just want to push very, high level, high level desire. And the Japanese government has been always opposing that kind of approach, since 1990s. So in this sense, it is very consistent. So this is a reason why Japanese government does not support TPNW because of its approach. First. And the observer, Japanese governments believe that as long as they do not support the treaty, they cannot participate as an observer because it will give a wrong message. Because we know that I really wanted to ask, the people in Nagasaki who really wish Japanese government to participate as an observer. I would like to ask them why Japanese government needs to attend, participate in the conference as an observer, because they wish Japanese government to show the support, but the government does not want to show the support. So if they are participated even as an observer, it will give a very wrong message. So I really believe that as long as Japanese government does not support the TPNW, they should not also participate as an observer. So answer to your first question, and second, ambiguity. No, actually, ICJ already gave their opinion that Article 6 of the NPT includes also elimination, the conclusion of negotiation. So it's not only about the obligation of negotiation. Negotiation should have a conclusion. So in this sense, even with the NPT, we can achieve the total elimination of nuclear weapons. That's my answer. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. We have a question from Chiara. Please go ahead.
Thank you.
Hi.
Hi, Kazuko. Thank you very much for this masterclass. It was very, very inspiring, especially, when you talk about the final outcome documents. And it's also, good to have firm believers in the NPT, as you seem to be. So my question is around the groupings in the NPT and the working groups, because as you rightly noticed, they have been formed during the Cold War. So they kind of reflect that period of time where you have the Western, the Eastern, and the non-aligned. Do you think that this is sustainable in the long term? Do you think it reflects the current reality, or do you think some changes might be needed there?
Thank you. Is that all your question?
Yes, that's the question. Yes.
Actually, there are groupings and there are frameworks, but what they are doing within the group have, of course, changed after the end of the Cold War. Like, Western group, we do not, the Western group, the countries do not negotiate their positions, common positions, for example. Yes. And the Eastern group as well, they still have very much rigid framework, but still, that's so interesting, because sometimes if one country of NAM says something not inconsistent with the NAM working paper, I pointed out, you're a NAM member, but, and your NAM working paper says this and this, but why you are not now saying the different position and so on. So there is a framework, but it's not so solid. But still, when it comes to the chairmanship, of course, the chairmans and the president of the review conference, they have the authority. So it still affects the performance of the conference. And the question whether it is sustainable or not, I think that the current world order is still very much based on the Cold War era. And it's now started to change, I think. The world order started to change because of the emerging global South power and the United States, policy. Maybe it will, it might change, but it will not start within the NPT, but outside NPT. If the world order has changed, then maybe in NPT, there will be some changes as well. Yeah, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I can't see any hands up, so I will abuse my role as the chair, and I'll pose a couple of questions myself. I can see Declan has his hand up now, so we'll go to him afterwards. I just wondered, Kazuko, could you just be interested to hear how you would characterize the health of the treaty regime, whether you feel that it's still strong, or whether it's struggling, or if there are challenges, but it's likely to meet it. And secondly, with regards to the 4 nuclear weapon possessor states who aren't members of the NPT, if the NPT is to be the sole sort of disarmament mechanism? What's the institutional process whereby they could be incorporated into it? Because obviously there isn't a role for them as nuclear weapon states within the treaty at present. Thanks.
Thank you. The first question, what regime are you talking about? Which regime?
Sorry, the NPT.
NPT?
Yeah.
An NPT regime is also not perfect, but it's really a cornerstone. And I again wrote I want to make it in English, but in Japanese there is a book published December, and it's not. I'm a co-author of this book, and there I wrote about I compared the NPT, CTBT, FMCT, and TPNW as this major disarmament international law treaties, and the most universalized one is the NPT, of course, because it made an effort to make it as universal as possible. In that sense, I think we should really keep the NPT, but NPT is just a cornerstone. And one of my colleagues called it a kind of English, I forgot. Anyway, space. Yeah, space, We have a big NPT space, but we can fill the space with other measures. So even if we don't have four, well, North Korea is tricky, but India, Pakistan, Israel, only India, Pakistan, and Israel are outside the NPT, clear outside of the NPT. But the TPNW, how many? So we should approach these three countries outside NPT. That's why I am always supportive for your basics activities, because you are also focusing on India and Pakistan and Asian issues. We can do a lot of things. So, but with keeping NPT as it is. Did I answer to your question?
Yes, thank you. Thank you. That's great. Declan, I believe you were next. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Dave, and thanks, Kazuko, for an excellent talk. I agree with Chiara that particularly the context behind the kind of history of substantial agreements, NPT review conferences is really important to note, because I think it can get forgotten. I think just how regular it consistently is that the agreements don't happen. However, there is potential this next year that next year it could be the third time in a run that on the road that we haven't had an agreement. In the past, with the pattern of agreement and then non-agreement and then agreement and non-agreement, is there something in the past that maybe was done, maybe a practice that you've seen or an approach that led to them getting back to forming an agreement after another year? Like, is there something that used to happen that helped keep semi-regular agreements from happening that maybe isn't happening now? Or perhaps do you think that geopolitics is just very different? I'd be interested to know why you think that kind of pattern has been broken in recent years.
Okay, thank you very much. So it's not only the NPT now, because the world order is now changing, and that's the division between the states are worsening. It's not only the NPT where the kind of agreed document can be adopted. Everywhere we see it everywhere, and this formula, kind of not comprehensive documents, but just some agreement could be adopted. That was actually discussed in 2005 under President Duterte. He also tried to just, short message, short agreed statement that all state parties, support the NPT and so on. But that was also blocked because people just doesn't have want to have an agreement. And also 2000, I think that was 15. Yes, 2015. I was there at the conference, and many diplomats, they are very serious about the nuclear disarmament. They believe that it's better to have nothing than some kind of agreement which have no prospect to achieve, like 2000 final document. So as long as there are many people who believe that we don't have any we don't need to have any agreement if it is not good, then I think that just leave it. It will not the end of the regime, I think. That's why, I'm trying to tell the people, it's not the end of the world, even if we don't have any agreed document. I think that's, perspective is important. I'm not sure what you think. But
Thanks very much. The next question was from Georgia Cole.
Hi, thank you so much for this. It's been really interesting. I have 2 questions. The first one being, I'd like to hear more about your thoughts on what role civil society has in NPT negotiations and where you think they can have sort of the most impact. And then secondly, I was wondering what you think about the AUKUS agreement and what that means for sort of non-proliferation norms, and then also with Japan's interest in joining Pillar 2. Just what you think about that generally would be really interesting. Thank you.
thank you very much. So the first role of civil society, I think it's very important, especially because I was also working for the government, in the past, I can see the difference, and I see the big potential of civil society where it is, the government officials, they are too busy. They cannot think of 10 years later. They are focusing on the current issues because, like, for example, Japanese government official, the foreign ministry's officials, they are thinking what we should do when the North Korean missiles will be launched and it will attack Japan. So what should we do? That kind of, that very current, very imminent threat. They are very much occupied with those things. So I was told, and I wanted to deal with all these, daily issues anymore. That's why I left the ministry and changed my career as an academia. And then that was so interesting. I talked with my former colleague once, and he asked me, I told him that, I'm now so happy because I can think of more long-term perspectives, things, And then he said, yeah, I know, but, we are too busy, so can you think a little bit more, midterm things like, what we should do for 2 years later or something like that. And I realized maybe we as civil society can make really meaningful policy recommendations, what they cannot think of because they don't have time. And this, my impression, I got the same impression when I attended the Wilton Park seminar, 1.3. So there are government officials from other countries and also like experts in academia like me. They are also clear, somehow distinction. The government officials are like, what kind of document the NPT Review Conference should have, and what kind of agreement we can reach. But it's, we could have more big picture. Yes, big picture and the more concrete steps to achieve the total elimination of nuclear weapons. I think this is the very important role of civil society. Second question, AUKUS. Yes. The Western countries, they have always, not sorry, always, they do often the things that will come to themselves as a problem later. Like, the safeguards of the fuel of nuclear submarines, how we can safeguard it. We have that kind of discussion already since 30 years ago for the FMCT. Because, to make the FMCT effective, we need to create a kind of safeguard system for nuclear submarines. And it was so difficult. It was so difficult. So if the participating countries in AUKUS, if they, created a kind of loose safeguards, it will be a kind of precedence for the FMCT. So it will undermine the, strong safeguard system for the FMCT. So I think it is very problematic. And I'm not sure Japan will join in their activities. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next question is from Kokoro. Please go ahead.
Thank you so much. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much, Hikawa Kyoji, for your insight. I understand that NPT serves as a foundation of the nuclear-related treaties, so we cannot skip this part. And I actually have two questions for you. So one is about, as NPT reforms are needed to take into account evolving of security environment, I would like to ask how recent developments in cybersecurity and technological advancements are being incorporated into the NPT framework. And second one, it's not directly about NPT, but in your answer to this session, like you also mentioned about TPNW and Japanese government attitudes, and you explained that Japanese government statement that like participating in the TPNW as an observer would deliver the wrong message. And as a part of the Nagasaki citizens and the Japanese citizens, I'm not quite sure about what they mean as a wrong message. So I would like to hear more about your interpretations and observation on this government messaging. And I feel like Hikawa Kyoji is the best person to ask this because you have both rich careers as MOFA diplomat and the researchers. So yes, thank you so much.
Thank you very much. For the first question about the evolving security situations, as I said, NPT is a kind of cornerstone, and we have established already, the export control measures and other export control measures and other initiatives and so on. So we can do it also the same way. For example, the artificial intelligence issues, we can create a new, framework or initiatives, but inconsistent with the NPT, for example. So it's we can, do a lot of things under the regime, NPT regime. So yes, we call it under the NPT regime. The second one is, yes, the wrong message. One is that was, I think, the foreign minister mentioned that he just mentioned that wrong message. If the Japanese government participated in the meeting of state parties as an observer, it gave a kind of impression that we will abandon our nuclear deterrence policy, for example. And the second one is again, this is the same, actually the same, but to give the impression that the Japanese government is supportive for the TPNW. That is really wrong message because Japanese government does not support the TPNW. That's why they do not want to participate. And also he spoke at the press conference that the government checked the statement by Germany and Norway when they participated in a meeting as an observer in the past, and they made it clear that they do not support the TPNW. And that is also what the Japanese government does not want to do, I think, at the same time, because, it will, of course, humiliate the Japanese people, because they expect that the Japanese government participating as an observer, it is a good sign, and they support the treaty. And if they say, we do not support the TPNW, so why they need to be there? That's why they decided to not participate as an observer. I think it's very consistent and very unfortunate, of course, because so many people, especially in Nagasaki, they wish that Japan will participate as an observer, but no, they cannot. Thank you.
Thank you for the question, and thank you for your answer. I do not see any more hands up, and we are just coming up to the 1 hour. So I think probably, unless anyone has a burning question, we should leave the masterclass there. Thank you so much, Kazuko, for your insights and for a fascinating talk, and also for your good humor and your optimism, I think both of which are very welcome at this particular time. Thank you very much to everyone for joining us, and I hope you will come to our future masterclasses.
Thank you. Thank you very much.